Hello, I'm Sean Moberly, and this is the continuation of my story on how I became stranded in the Tiber. So what then? What course should one take when they have information that their denomination is not perfect? My decision was to adopt those beliefs which I now knew to be more true than what I was taught. I continued to do this until around the time my oldest child was born. In that way, and in that way only, unfortunately, I suppose I'm kind of like Dr. Scott Hahn. He stated that his realization that Catholicism might be true started around the time that he became a father, and so it was with me. I was raised extremely anti-Catholic, and I didn't even believe Catholics could be Christians until I learned that J.R.R. Tolkien was a Catholic. When I was 28 years old, I composed a list of things that I believed were the bare basics of Christianity. And these things that I believed were the most fundamental things that make up Christianity. And Catholics made the cut. I discovered the Nicene Creed later that year, and I was very surprised to see that it was extraordinarily similar to the list that I had created. And not long after that is when I started, by sheer accident, coming across the teachings of Catholicism. Every week for a few months I would come across another teaching of the Catholic Church, and to my extreme surprise, each time I learned something new, it lined up almost perfectly, if not perfectly, with the biblical discoveries that I had been making over the past several years. And I eventually even started learning things that I couldn't accept at the time, but that's where it all started. And I remember actually telling my wife all the things that I was learning, and everything I learned and how I was, my mind quickly went from Catholics aren't that bad after all to in the areas where holiness and Catholicism differ, Catholicism is right significantly more times than holiness is. And my wife's response to all this was, please tell me you aren't going to make us become Catholic. And of course, my intention was not to make us become Catholic. Besides, Catholics believe in all kinds of silly things, right? I mean, come on, Immaculate Conception, perpetual virginity, praying to the saints. What sane person would believe those things? Then again, if, on the perpetual virginity, if Mary had other children, then why did Jesus make John take Mary to be his mother if there were other children? I don't know. So in the beginning, I found the majority of arguments for Catholicism to be lacking and unconvincing. And I still find most of the arguments unconvincing, yet here I am, and I appear to be convinced. Because over the past 2 years, I haven't fallen for a single argument put forth by even the best Catholic apologists, like the aforementioned Scott Hahn, or Trent Horn, or Jimmy Akin. So what was it that finally convinced me? Well, I don't know, but it had to be God in some way or other, because over time of listening to these people, their arguments and beliefs still sounded silly, but my objections started just sounding even sillier. So I wound up being convinced in a very anticlimactic way, but what about my wife? Was she convinced in the same way that I was? I don't know when my wife became convinced of the same things that I became convinced of. What I do know is that at this point in time, we try nightly, the two of us together, to pray the rosary daily, every day in the evening. There we go. On a nightly basis, daily, whatever. And if I'm actually tired and I don't really want to, or if I forget, she'll wind up being the one reminding me to do it. Now, there are, of course, some things that I'm still not convinced about intellectually, but for me, that's where faith comes in. I don't need to be convinced intellectually to accept something as the truth. So that is how I got to this point. I don't know what else I can say, so this might be a 2-video channel, because I don't know what else I can say about this, but I'd love to keep talking. Maybe I'll talk about some of the stuff I used to believe, and why that changed, the specific Catholic beliefs that I believe now that I didn't before, and if I can think of the reason why I was convinced to talk about that. But Yep. For now, that's really the full and complete extent of my story as it is. So yeah, that's that. I'll talk to you guys later.